The most important element is you. The way that you interact with the market and take risk in the market is based on your beliefs. It has nothing to do with the CCI or the alligator or the MACD or what Darren says or what I say for that matter. It's really about you.
Two traders, Darren and Walter, pull back the curtain on profitable trading systems, consistent money management, and profitable psychological triggers. Welcome to the Two Traders Podcast.
Welcome back to the Two Traders Podcast. Walter here, and Darren is over there. How are you today, Darren?
Very good, Walter. Thank you.
So we are going to talk about a question that's come through from a listener, and the question is, how can I learn to hold on to my winning trades when I get them? So I'm pretty sure that you've got some thoughts on this, Darren, on this idea of holding on to winning trades when you get them. So can you share some ideas for this listener? What might he or she be able to do?
Yeah, this is kind of a hot topic with the traders that I work with at the moment as well. And it becomes, I find that it becomes highlighted when you're in a period where perhaps the wins are coming slightly harder, perhaps when you've had a run of losses. And there's one event that I feel always stands out in my mind that causes the most trouble for traders, and that is the fact that a winning trade is always going to come back to your entry. The trade that you enter that goes directly to your take profit is the 1 in 50, 1 in 100. And even though we're fully aware of that, I find that if a trade races off in our direction, it's even worse. So let's say you enter and straight away it goes up 70 pips. Then it retraces. When you've got that volatility, it's even more likely that the retrace is going to be quite strong. And it's when that retrace happens that the emotions take over, and that's where the bad decisions occur. I think really it's about becoming comfortable with this notion of how price moves, and price moves in this zigzag up and down motion, and it's always going to come back, sometimes a lot, sometimes a little bit, and you need to learn to become comfortable with that, or like I always say, make some notes so you expect it, you can read the notes, and then you're switched on to the fact, okay, this is the moment when I usually make my mistake. And then you can refer to your rules of when you're really going to exit. And then when you get to that point, then you can make your decision. That's the one that I see occurring the most often with traders. It's the retrace. And it might be different for different strategies, but that's the one that I see. Yeah,
that's a really good point. I'll post a video in the show notes of this episode from an interview that I did with a trader, Colin, and he used this really simple, exceptionally simple system to trade the daily Euro chart. And what he found was exactly what you said, which was when he took these trades, the market would almost always come back and retrace against him, sometimes beyond his entry spot. So he never moved to break even until after that happened, and he was always in the market too. So he's always it's one of those systems where you're kind of always long or short, and he was always kind of in the market, but he would never move the risk and take risk off until that first move happened. So he called it moving his stop to break even relatively late, and it was simply to withstand that. So I think you bring up a good point. I would suggest that if you really want to hold on to your winning trades, it sounds like that when you take a trade and you take some profit, but then it goes much further. Let's say you take 100 pips, and then you turn around a week later and it's gone 500 more pips. It sounds like you're trying to avoid that. And the best way to avoid that feeling of missing out because you've taken profit so early is to use some sort of trailing exit. So that trailing exit will give it a little bit more wiggle room, depending on how you set it up, and you're always going to give back when you use that trailing exit. You're never going to get in and out at the peak and the trough and all that, but you will also ensure that if the market really goes, you take a significant chunk out of that great move, and you're not necessarily guaranteed to do that when you have a profit target, when you have a hard target, whether it's risk-based or support and resistance or whatever you use. So that's another thing, I think. And the last thing I would say is, thinking about this, a lot of traders I've found feel better, and this isn't really something to use because you think you're going to make the most money doing this, but psychologically it's quite satisfying for a lot of traders who use sort of a hybrid, where they will take a hard target, again, based on risk. So if they risk 100 pips, they've got a 200 pip target, or support and resistance, or whatever. If you use indicator, the indicator crosses the other way or whatever. And then you also have a trailing exit too, some sort of trailing exit that allows you to capture the big chunk of that move if it does continue on. So that also is something that some traders use with success. You're always going to wish that you had all of your position on when the market really goes, and you only have a portion of your position on for that big move. And likewise, when the market just hits your target and then comes back and turns into a break even or a loss, you're going to wish that you had all of your position on at that quick target, but at least you have some sort of feeling that you're doing all you can. You know what I mean? So that's something that some people...
I think it's loss aversion, basically, isn't it? It's loss aversion kicking in. You have a win, and there's nothing worse than a win becoming a loss. I mean, there's nothing worse than that. But, in effect, it's not a win if it hasn't reached your exit rules or your target. Then it's not a win, and the problem is kind of associating that as a win. And when you do your back testing, you're not considering the trades that went into profit and then stopped out. You're not considering them as wins, but your back test data should still show that you're profitable over time. And again, it's becoming comfortable with those losses, and it really is the hardest thing to do, and it seems to be compounded in trading. And if you can get comfortable with that, then in the long run, you really will crack the nut of trading. Really, it's difficult. I know. I use a similar thing as you say. Is I'll enter a trade and I'll have a specific event that must occur before I can manage my positions, and then once that event's occurred, then I have some options, like you say, trail my stop, move to break even, or just close out for profit. So I've still got a bit of flexibility there, but I've kind of got a punctuation mark that needs to happen before I'll do any management. And it's still very difficult. You have to work on it every trade. I do wonder sometimes if I tend to trade just a few pairs, and I see some traders who trade lots of pairs and spread their risk over many, and so they've got more positions open, and I suppose that kind of takes the emphasis away from like your single trade that you're in at the moment, and it feeling like that it's either a winner or a loss. And I suppose if you kind of diversify a little bit and have a mixture of pairs, then you may have two trades that are profitable, and you maybe not that loss aversion probably wouldn't be as strong. I don't know. Again, this is something you need to sort of trial and error and see how you feel, and see if you're comfortable sort of spreading your risk over more pairs, and if that deals with, because we all have to deal with this loss aversion, this feeling and the fear, and there is no one answer for all of us. There's just kind of techniques that you have to try and somehow overcome it.
Yeah, that's it. And the test that I suggest, and this is something for people here, if you're thinking, well, I don't know what to do here, this is something that I would suggest, and see if this resonates with you, the listener. think about this. When you take a trade and it goes 100 pips in your favor, and then you move your stop loss, right, and it comes back and stops you out at break even. So there's that pain. So that's the pain of trade one, right? And then the other pain is that you have a trade, it goes in your favor, you've got a target 100 pips away, and you hit that target and you cash out of the trade. And then you see the trade go almost immediately, let's say in the next 2 hours, it goes another 100 pips, but it's gone without you. So the question is, which trade is more painful for you? Is it trade one, where you had 100 pips and it turned into nothing, or was it trade two, where it's the same loss really? You gained 100 pips, but you could have had 200, so you still lost the same amount. I use the term lost. You've lost the same amount. It's not really a loss, but so what does that mean to you? Which one of those is more painful? So if it's more painful for you to see a trade that's gone into profit come back and stop out at break even, maybe you should trade for targets. Maybe that should be the way that you approach your trading. And if you find it more painful to see a trade go on and on without you, then maybe you should be using some sort of trailing exit, because that's really what you're trying to capture out of your trades. So that's another way, I suppose, of looking at it, depending on what's important to you.
Yeah. I think also you need to view these parts of trading as these are the challenges, and almost kind of like take on the challenge. Know that this is one of the elements that really decides whether a lot of traders are consistently profitable or consistently breaking even and losing, and enjoy that challenge, be ready for it, and take it on and feel good about yourself when even if the trade turned out to be a loss, that you saw it through and you recognized what was happening, and you stuck to your method and your process, and see that as you basically learning to trade. And it's not about those technical things of, well, not just about those technical things of the the entry and the exit. It's about making those decisions at key moments, and mark that out as your challenge for the week, not to necessarily be profitable or have losses, but see how well did I execute the process, how often was I thrown off by my emotions. Make your notes and journal it through the week. Don't just journal the results of your trades. Journal the key moments where you either made the right decision or you were thrown off, and what threw you off, and how you can recognize it in the future.
Yeah, that's great advice. Exactly. So really what we're talking about here, Darren, if I take a step back, is how do you fit your trading system in with what you're comfortable with your beliefs, with what you basically are going to do over the long term. Because if you don't do that, if you don't take time to sort of fit it all together, you're just going to be chasing your tail always, aren't you?
Yeah, and you'll be trying to look for some technical element, like changing the risk to reward slightly, or having your stop below the swing instead of the low, and you'll be looking for those largely insignificant elements to make the difference, and you'll be missing the big picture.
Exactly, yeah. Or even worse, you change from the RSI to the CCI or whatever. Yeah.
And then still make the same decision mistakes, and you're basically, like I say, you're missing the big picture of why you're going wrong. And that gets to the crux of it all. You really need to be critical and look at yourself and see where you are personally going wrong.
Exactly. And this is precisely why, if you look at someone's account, someone who's trading the exact same system that you are, and you look at their account statement, and you look at all their numbers and every stat you can look at, from Sharpe ratio to reward to risk to win rate to whatever average winner, whatever you want to look at, that's why you can be trading this exact same system that Darren is, and your results are completely different. That's why. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the most important element of your trading system is you, and it's the decisions that you make. It's how you execute it. It's how you fit your beliefs into your trading system, and then basically take risk in the market based on your beliefs. That's essentially, when you think about it, really that's what trading boils down to.
Yeah, I agree 100%, Walter. And it's the hardest thing to learn, and it's the element that's talked about the least in the forums, although some of the good forums do talk about it a lot more. But, some of the really big forums, it's all about strategy. It's all about technicals. It's all about profit and loss. And, there's very little emphasis on how you make the decisions and how you deal with your emotions in those difficult decision times.
Absolutely, yeah. And really, I can understand why most of the discussion centers on, the right settings for your optimized alligator indicator or whatever it is. I understand that, because I remember what it was like as a trader trying to learn this and figure out what do I need to focus on. And almost everyone, when they first come into this, they're just looking for the perfect system, and that's why so much of the chatter out there on the internet is focused on finding the right system, and how is this the right system, and you give me the right system, and then I can pave my road to riches. But what we're saying here, and probably beating it to death, so we probably should shut this down soon. But what we're saying here is, obviously, it's you guys. So that's you as the listener, you the trader. You are fitting your beliefs into some strategy that you're comfortable with. The most important element is you. The way that you interact with the market and take risk in the market is based on your beliefs. It has nothing to do with the CCI or the alligator or the MACD or what Darren says, or what I say for that matter. It's really about you. And the sooner we acknowledge that and give that its due, the easier it is for you to make a living out of this stuff. Otherwise, you're just going to be looking for a better system. You're just going to be tweaking things that don't need to be tweaked, when really the focus should be centered on you, the trader. So yeah, I think this has been really good, Darren, and I appreciate your time. Do you have any sort of closing remarks?
No, not really. I just, the final point really is that I think we're going back to the forum thing. I think we're afraid to admit that, talk about our emotions as well. And especially, I notice it with, I'm from the UK, so I notice it particularly with Brits. And I'm sure there's other countries that are more in tune with expressing their emotions, but we're quite guarded with our emotions here as well, and I don't think that doesn't help us as well. So yeah, we're not built to be traders.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And we talked about it in the one of the earlier episodes, the Trading Tribe episode, which was basically, you can go back and listen to that, but basically the whole idea of the Trading Tribe is exactly what you just said, Darren, which is that because we don't experience emotions in sort of typical Western life, that's part of our culture, right? So we're very different to how they act in Argentina, for example. Yeah, so we have a very different, or Italy for that matter, or whatever. So typically you're supposed to be guarded. You're not supposed to share your emotions. I've been looking at some personality profiles of traders, and only one of them had a profile where this trader had sort of an extreme emotionality. So he basically wore his emotions on his sleeve, and every other trader was really low in that regard. Which is not to say it's better or worse. It's just the consistent face that we put on in Western culture, in Western English-speaking culture. That's pretty typical. So that's a really good point that I think that's a valid point that you bring up, is that emotions are things that can direct our behaviors much more so than we acknowledge, and particularly when they're sort of under the surface, sort of brewing down there. We can act out little dramas in our lives in order to experience the emotions that we're not really allowed to to experience in everyday life. And that's the whole crux of the trading tribe. So if you are more interested in that, definitely take a listen to. Definitely check out the Trading Tribe episode. It's one of the first episodes I think we did. So thanks a lot for your time, Darren. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Okay, well, cheerio, mate.